Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to our March 14th, 2023 Board of Education meeting. We are calling the meeting to order. It is 7:03 p.m. And if everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. A reading of meeting notice. The meeting is being conducted in compliance with the open meeting session that the Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its annual reorganization meeting held on January 3rd, 2023. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, with which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona Cedar Grove Times, the Star Ledger, the Township of Verona, and the VEA. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public Schools District website. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public and press. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call attendance.
Sure, Mr. Walker. Mrs. Frizella.
Here.
Mrs. Farrar.
Here.
Mrs. Prisco.
Here.
Mrs. Freshy.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to go into our presentations, and our Director of Special Services, Tanya Simmons, is going to present new life skills programs at VHS. Thank you for being here.
Everybody, good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. So as you know, on the agenda tonight, I am requesting board approval to expand our LLD program to the high school. To date, our LLD program runs up through 8th grade. And there's, quite a large group of students that are accessing that program, and we want to be able to continue that through high school. So the goal of an LLD life skills program is to really develop the skills, knowledge, and confidence for independent living. This is a unique learning opportunity. We're taking all of the core curriculum classes and infusing life skills and curriculum modifications. So the anticipated courses for next year would be all of your core English, math, science, and social studies. And that would be taught at the LLD level, which really indicates, and it means that it's taught to the students' goals and objectives. That's what's really guiding the curriculum. And the addition of a new course called Life Skills. Eventually, potentially even for the following year, 24-25, an ideal program would also include a course in job coaching as well. So for next year for life skills, what we're really looking to do is develop a course that focuses on adult living goals, daily living skills, community experiences, and expanding that to community-based instruction on a regular basis, and job sampling. Oftentimes, job sampling can start in the high school itself to build some of those vocational skills. So life skills units of study typically include cooking, nutrition, pre-vocational skills, self-care, personal finance, daily living skills, and infused in all of that is communication. So our related service providers really become integral in pushing in and providing services within the program in the classroom. So when I took a look at this, we do have a big cohort of 8th graders right now. There are 6 who are accessing the LLD classroom. So, these are projections of numbers. Obviously, there would have to be discussions with each family, with each student, with all the teachers for recommended programming. So these numbers are just anticipated, and I truly mean anticipated, because this is what we'd be discussing with the families. But if everybody agrees, this is a very viable program that will allow us to keep a lot of students in district. To date, many of the students were going out of district to LLD programs in other public schools or private schools. So the goal is really to keep them here in Verona. I know many of the families want their students here as well. So I I pulled together a meeting with the middle school and high school teams back at the end of February. We only had 30 minutes because by the time the HBW folks got over here, it was pretty limited time after school. So I used a Jamboard to get everybody to put their ideas down. And when I asked them about what they, as the teachers of the students and the child study team members, what they envision for an LLD program, these are the ideas that came up. And I just wanted to share this with you guys because when I saw it, it actually made my heart really happy. There's a lot of passionate people there. There's a lot of passionate staff members that truly believe and want to make sure that we have a continuum of programming here at the high school for our students. So that's what they want to see with this program. So the approval process, first it starts with your approval. The next step, if approved, is we would set up tours. There are some programs in the area that have been used. West Orange is one of the programs that Verona has often used. So I would send a team of our child study team and teachers there to take a look at it. Because, I think the hardest thing when you build a new program is trying to envision what that would look like. So if we can get some model programs and get some exposure to those, I think it'll help everybody understand what the program is and help us articulate it to the families. And West Essex, in full disclosure, will be one of the schools that will be toured because they're up and running. After that would be county approval, course development, enrollment, and this will really go kind of alongside the course development. I mean, obviously I've identified students that would be appropriate for the program. So now it's a matter of having the IEP meetings and conversations with families. Staffing is a challenge, but that would be the next step. Curriculum writing over the summer, and then training and implementation in the fall. So there's so many benefits to building a program in district. I mean, not only does the code, but we as professionals always want we want to keep our kids in district, and we want to keep them in their home schools. And I have to say, Verona is really ripe for this type of program, only because of one of the reasons is the accessibility to town. I mean, not many towns in New Jersey have this many kind of walkable areas that sometimes in different towns in the state, when you're really relying on cars, it's hard to really build a full community-based instruction program because then you are reliant on public transportation or other types of transportation. But we really are in a great spot. HBW currently goes out for community-based instruction and they just walk to whatever location they're doing their CBI in. And I know a lot of the kids want to stay here. They have been integrated through 8th grade, and they should continue to do so through high school and beyond. It also helps to have opportunities for students to interact with non-disabled peers, and they really add to the community, to the school community. And also integrating related services is really nice. We have excellent service providers here. So these are professionals who've worked with the students for many years and do a great job. So keeping them together is also beneficial. Some of the challenges, staffing is always really tough, particularly at the secondary level with certifications. So teacher, the handicap was the old golden ticket, which isn't available anymore to teachers. So staffing becomes a little trickier with certifications. Space in the high school is definitely a challenge. I have had a conversation with Josh already. We've walked around and kind of looked at some potential spaces, but the next, if approved, would be really to get buildings and grounds to kind of sit down and really get to the next level of space. And creating a space that's really conducive to life skills. A sink is almost really the minimum. Without running water, it's really hard to do anything else. Everything else can be built. You can always upgrade electrical for a stove and refrigerator and things like that, but running water is something that's really essential. And variable enrollment, this is something that, when you look at a program in the long term, every year you have different, number of students who require services. Right now, with the projections where they are, we're looking at least 4 years of high enrollment. In my previous district, we took in tuition in students in times when enrollment dropped, just to keep it to be a viable program. That's it. Questions?
I have a couple. I know you had said that we would be able to keep more students in district. Do we have an idea of what the cost savings of not having to pay other schools to educate our students would be to us?
So my understanding was not everybody's slate was slated to go out of district. There was some creative scheduling that had been done in the past to keep kids in district. And some families had already been promised that they would have out of district placements for next year. But there are at least 6 students that we will, if they agree to, will be keeping in district. I can't tell you how many of those would have ultimately went out, because right now we're offering them something here.
Yeah, so number one, I love this idea, but the question I had was on the projection. So some of these students will probably would be eligible to be into this program until they're 21, correct?
Mhm.
So do we see in Verona that kids will often, I guess, opt to do that, or parents will opt to have their kids stay till they're 21, or do we expect that most will leave after 4 years when they graduate?
That's a good question. I would, again, probably about half and half. So currently Cedar Grove, it has our students that are 18 to 21. So there were students that were in district who have now are going to Cedar Grove for their 18 to 21 program. So there's a good amount of students that we're currently sending out
And
there.
would they have the, if we did this, if we could roll this out by September, would they have the option of coming back to here?
No,
Okay.
no, because 18 to 21 is truly a separate program. And in my experience, having developed this type of program, this group of 9th graders would be the 9th grade group that we would then have start a program 18 to 21 in district.
So the next, once this starts, those kids would start in Verona, and when they turn 19, then they go to Cedar Grove, or they?
No,
so
no, we would continue
good.
developing our program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Right now, it would be really challenging to start a program and try to get kids back in for the last year or two.
that's
So
good to hear.
that it would be a natural progression to have these kids start here. And then when they get to that age in 4 years, to develop the 18 to 21 program.
Perfect. And what certs are fair game for a program like this?
So teacher of the handicap is, like I said, it's a golden ticket. You can teach anything. The state does require for all others that you're certified. So now with the teacher of students with disabilities, if you're teaching math, you have to have math and teachers with students with disabilities, English and teachers of students with disabilities. So there are some teachers that have multiple content area certs. So in all likelihood, these kids would not have the same teacher all day. We'd have to be using teachers who are content area experts and special education teachers.
And,
And
if
that's-
there's anyone in house that's expressed interest in something like this?
Yeah, so I do have one teacher,
Good.
teacher of the handicap, who's expressed interest in teaching it for next year.
Awesome. That's it. Thank you.
Think this is really exciting. Thank you. I think particularly the community-based instruction is really a great program. As far as the role that I just want to make sure I'm understanding it. So our plan is to roll this out for fall. So the curriculum would be written over the summer, approved, and then it would be starting in September.
Right, so it's not been my experience to write a separate English curriculum and math curriculum, because we use our general, like for our replacement classes, we use our general ed curriculum and we modify to the level of the students. So the new curriculum that would be written would be for the life skills program.
Just one more quick question.
Mhm.
You had mentioned a lot of push in with communication and it just a lot of, I assume that the speech therapist would be, does Ms. Thomas have the capacity to add on a program such as this without having to add an additional speech therapist?
So no, I do not anticipate adding another speech therapist. I think, Ms. Thomas is phenomenal and she's so passionate and so excited to bring this. So the opportunity is for her, as opposed to doing pull out, is to do push in sessions. So it won't necessarily raise the number of sessions that she has. It's just where the where it's delivered. I've had also OTs and PTs go on CBI with students. There's so many opportunities for our related service providers to provide their services in the context of the program. So it's be less pull out and more push in.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited for you to be bringing this to,
I'm excited too.
school.
And
Thank you
I know
for
there's a
your-
lot of families that,
for the efforts of getting this into our schools. So thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming out in the snow. Drive safe. Next up on our agenda will be Mr. Cruz to do the 2023-2024 tentative budget presentation. Thank you, Mr. Cruz.
Yes, thank you. I'm just gonna share my screen. So give me 1 second. So good evening, everyone. So I'm gonna be presenting along with Superintendent Giuseppe, since this is actually on the agenda tonight as the preliminary budget. So the board is going to be voting on accepting the preliminary budget. The adopted budget is going to be on the April 25th agenda. So just to for folks to have an understanding of how this actually the timeline, how it actually takes place. Basically, tonight you'll see what the preliminary proposal is, and it then gets sent to the county superintendent's office for the county approval. And then once it's actually reviewed by the county, the board gets, we could actually make edits and changes for the county approval. And then the board gets to finally adopt the budget on April 25th and vote on the tax levy. So I'm not gonna repeat the mission statement as I shared last time. One of the things that Superintendent Giuseppe mentioned, part of the strategic plan is that we are going to be looking at the mission statement as well. So this is something that we're looking forward to having for you guys as an updated mission statement and strategic plan. So the budgetary goals, as you all know, on the forefront of our policy is always maintaining our class sizes. In addition to that, we do have some adds to, as Ms. Simmons shared in her presentation, the additional programming that's being proposed as part of this budget. And also there's the 2 additional special ed teachers that will be needed. Another add is the kindergarten, 1 additional kindergarten teacher because of the increased kindergarten population that we're having in the district. And lastly, the transitioning of the 2 part-time nurses. So right now, we only have 2 full-time nurses in elementary schools and then 2 part-time. By transitioning the 2 part-time nurses and making them full-time, it will allow us to have 1 full-time school nurse at each elementary school. And then also, I just want to mention that this is something that's a big request for the superintendent is expanding professional development, especially across the districts, not just at the elementary school, middle school, and high school, but across all grade bands. And then I know that the superintendent will be speaking on this in a little bit. So the increases, one of the things that I'm not sure if we shared the last time we met, we did get the final numbers on healthcare increases and our expense. So one big increase for us is health benefits, and health benefits, as we go into the budget, you'll see that benefits and salaries is a big portion of our budget. And we did get a 9% increase on our health benefit premiums. And what that comes out to is close to $500,000. What the state allows us, because we're capped at 2%, there is a health adjustment that allows us to go up based on that amount. It was 0.74, which is that $271,000. So that is a health adjustment that's available to the board to increase up to that amount, and we're capped at that. The state aid, what we did receive the increase on was on the special ed component of the state aid, and that was $337,000. So as far as additional revenues, possible revenues for next year, this doesn't include the extraordinary aid, any increases on extraordinary aid, but right now it's 1.341495. So on this slide, I'm not going to go into it too deep, but just to give you an overview, this is a comparison of what the budgeted revenue is compared to the last 2 years. So the first line, you'll have the tax levy capped at 2%. And last year we did have a bank cap. This year we don't. The only option we have is that health adjustment, which is $23,000 less than the additional than the bank cap that we had last year or this current school year. And here you see the state aid increase. That increase includes an anticipated increase of about $60,000 for extraordinary aid, but we won't know those numbers until June. Tuition revenue, here we anticipate another $55,000 in tuition revenue. The miscellaneous and interest revenue, there's actually an additional $136,000. A big portion of that is due to the interest that we receive from our bank. So previously we were only receiving about $5,000. It was the anticipated revenue on the bank interest, and right now it's a little over $100,000. The fund balance. So this current school year, the 22-23 school year, we brought in an excess fund balance of $912,938, and what we're proposing is to bring in $903,334. So it's a 1% less than what we currently have, but that will keep us pretty much at bay. And this is also, just to give you an idea, this is also with the 1% and the 0.74% health adjustment. So the total proposed budget for 23-24 would be $42,168,627. Here you have a pie chart. I'm not sure if people could see this, but on their website, you'll be able to review this. And even if you're watching this online, you could pause the YouTube video and be able to see the breakdown in percentages. The largest percentage is our gen ed instruction, which is 32%. Special ed is broken down into a few categories. One is instruction, 9.4%. Tuition is basically out of district tuition. That's 7.8%. Then we have the related services and OTPT, 3%. Child study team is another 3%. We have our sponsored athletics, which is 2%, guidance at 1.9%. General administration, which is our building administrators, 2%. School administration, which is central office, and maintenance, custodial, and then benefits, which is a big chunk of 15%.
Mr. Cruz and I did go to try to shop out our benefits to see if we could get a better deal. Right now, though, we're in a bit of a sticky place because the American Health group that we function in does not give us an experience rating. So we can't shop out unless we leave that, go into the state health benefit plan, because they're the only ones that will take us without an experience rating, and then come out of it and try to shop a lower cost. Because our, what was it, 12% went up this?
So right now it's 9%.
9%. 9% our health benefits went up. It didn't go up as much as the state plan.
Right.
But it was a significant increase, 9%.
Is that the anticipated rate of it going up or is that the actual?
So right now that's the anticipated, and it hasn't changed. Like we'll know the final number probably next week. But that's the number. And I spoke to the broker right before the weekend, and he said, yeah, he's doubtful that it will go down. He said it might be capped at that amount.
So in the future, we may need to enter the state benefit plan for a period of time, and then, because clearly our size would put us at a lower experience
Yep.
rating. But we currently don't have an experience rating from entering this. How long have we been with Merrill Health?
I think it's over at 8 years now.
Yeah.
We've been with AmeriHealth, Brown and Brown.
We went to the state plan and then we're shopping again, that we could find ourselves in a position where we're paying even more than what we are now.
Yeah, it could, yeah, it's always a risk with benefits, yeah.
Yeah.
It just,
Thank
since
you.
we just
Yes.
spent some time looking at this particular situation and trying to save the district money.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that.
So this slide, I'm also going to leave. You could definitely take a look at it. It's probably very small. You can't see from the screen, but online, and if you pause the YouTube video, you'll be able to digest and see basically the same categories that we spoke about in percentages. It will actually have the amounts next to each category. So the expenditure comparison, this is looking back the last 3 years, and the year-over-year change from between the current and the anticipated new proposed budget. We have salaries. Surprisingly, it's actually less, and benefits is going up 9.62%. Special ed 6.82%. General instruction 7.1, and then we also have general services, which covers the other areas, which is 18.45%. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Giuseppe.
So this slide has kind of been in this presentation for the past couple of years. So these are the elementary initiatives that we've been working on in Verona. So definitely increasing our teachers' understanding and implementation of our language program, which includes Foundations, Heggerty, and Acadience. We also do a modified reading and writing workshop type of instruction. So providing teachers with professional development in those areas. Also, we use Singapore Math, or Amplify is a brand of Singapore Math dimensions in grades K-5, and then Amplify in the upper levels. We'll continue working with Mr. Jackson from Amplify Math. We did start a K-4 social studies series this year for the first time, called History Alive or Social Studies Alive. We're looking to extend that into the middle school. It is a really excellent program. It's a very problem-based learning, very hands-on and inquiry-based, as is the science program that will continue. We are in year 2 of letters training, which actually is kind of should be up near bullet number 1 or the first bullet, because that's also a reading. It's a staff reading program. It's extreme. Mrs. Peter spoke about it a couple meetings ago. It's a huge commitment by our staff, and we're very appreciative of those that took part. We will be finishing up with all staff that are not trained in letters in next year. Excuse me, in the next year. They'll continue to administer the math growth assessments in math and reading across, actually we do that grades K-8, and continuing to work on the curriculum. I do want to pause here and say that part of the professional development that I have been pushing for has to do with general pedagogy, which a lot of this professional development is definitely needed, and you get pedagogical professional development kind of infused into it. I would love to see just more general professional development on best practices. There's a reason why curriculum cycles and changes in what we know about students occurs in a 5 to 7 year period, because that's when we get bumps in our knowledge of how the brain learns. And I would love to see more of that happening. So Mr. Cruz found me the money. And one of the things we're going to be looking at across the board for teacher professional development is we currently use a teacher evaluation system that's fairly antiquated. It's a good system. The new one is even better. I think we even spoke about this a little bit in my interview process. So, and we spoke about it a couple meetings as well. When you utilize the teacher evaluation system as a feedback mechanism versus a gotcha, right, rather, or a compliance tool, you can really move teachers and move instruction. And so we are partnering with Learning Sciences International is what they were for the past 10 years. So I'm going to say that they just changed their name. Who came and Gwendolyn Bryant came and worked with our administrators. She'll be coming back in August to work with them again, as well as teacher leaders. So we'll be training teachers and administrators in the same room to work with a new evaluation model called the Focus Teacher Evaluation System. It's really based in current pedagogy and current understanding of how kids learn. And if we utilize this model appropriately, I can guarantee we will see a change in student outcomes. So that's kind of where my focus is, in addition to what you can see on the slide, which is very similar to what I just went through in K4 at HB Whitethorn. So you're looking at professional learning specifically at with our ELA program and our math program, continuing to support teachers in science and social studies. And what they're trying to work on in HBW is getting teachers to work in professional learning communities, which is very difficult, right? It's very involved, and we need some more training for them as well. And then again, at the high school level, continuing, they're also looking to increase the number of professional learning communities that are happening at the high school as well. Looking at selective English courses, which were very progressive. Mrs. Peter did a really nice job at presenting what the selective courses could be for students. I think, Reese, you were involved in looking at some of those, were you not?
Just as a like part of the wider student survey process. But yeah, they were really interesting. And
Very
it's,
interesting.
and
right?
it's a cool initiative, because then you do have that option more so in 12th grade as well. So bringing that down to 11th grade makes perfect sense with the curriculum.
Yeah, so very creative, and we're increasing our options in robotics and STEM, and looking at adding some electives in the music program. They're not on here, but I can guarantee that we'll have at least 1 or 2 more music electives. Mr. Cogdell's working with Mr. Lynch and Mr. Robleski in adding things like hip hop and guitar and percussion electives. So lots of interesting stuff happening across all 3 grade spans.
So this slide is actually the special services slide. Here we have, I'm not going to go too much into it, since Ms. Simmons actually did share about the life skills program. One of the pieces that the board also had for approval is the transition to Care Plus, which is also on the agenda. And the other component is the paraprofessionals and the registered behavioral technicians as well, monitoring and continuing that, which is currently new in the past budget as well.
Yeah, we have 5 RBTs currently that do pretty significant amount of data collection on our students in our autism program and our multiple disabilities program.
So this is a slide that's been part of our budget for a few years now. It's currently updated with the 2022 data. Here we have comp school districts, and you can see that Verona continues to be most efficient when it comes to the per pupil cost. And in our rankings, our cohort, I believe, is about 78 districts in our cohort, and we usually have pretty good rankings in comparison to efficiencies. And that being said, you could also see the classroom supplies per pupil and the extracurricular per pupil, and then lastly is the average property tax in each of those townships. So we're almost at the end. Here's the good stuff. So the tax levy increase in the general funds section for the proposed budget is 37,645,428, which is an increase of $1,004,41 from the year prior. Debt service, it's an increase of 41,289 from the year prior. The total levy for 23-24 will be 41,464,007. So the impact on homeowners, which is what everyone wants to know, the bottom line, is a little under $193 in the annual property tax. And that's basically the way that that's calculated is the township total value, taking the tax, the current tax levy budget and getting the rate, and then that rate, that 0.017 is taking on the average home. And right now, the average school tax on the average Verona resident is $7,494. So this is just a slide with the current facts of this proposed budget. So the total increase is 2.74%, and the total increase, as I mentioned before, as far as like the actual dollar figure for the annual increase is $192.95. And as I mentioned before, also the average assessed home in Verona is $433,000. Making that the average school tax paid by a resident $7,494, and the tax rate is $1.73 per $100 of your valuation. So that's actually the rate, $1.73 per $100 of your assessed valuation. And the next steps is pretty much submitting this preliminary budget to the county superintendent before March 20th. Then the board will have its public hearing on the adoption of the 23-24 budget on April 25th, 2023 in the same place here at the Learning Commons at Verona High School. And we'll be opening that meeting at 7 p.m. that night. That's all I have for you guys today. If you guys have any questions. Ms. Walker.
This is for the superintendent. Number one, excellent job, Jorge, and everyone that helped you with this. So with the increase in PD, I think it's a great idea, and of course I'd support the idea of if we're having teachers come in their non-contracted hours to be compensated for that. And maybe this is just my perception or misperception, but it seems like a lot of the times, whenever there's a new PD initiative in the past, we'd be assigning a 12-month employee like a stipendary spot to run that PD. Are we gonna, with this extra PD, with the learning models that you want to get the staff trained on, is it likely that we're gonna see in future agendas us to approve 12-month employees to run PD sessions?
A stipend?
Yes, it's what I'm fearful of seeing is that we approve, whatever new PD plan that you think's in the best of the district. I agree that it will be
Mhm.
best for the district, but I don't want to vote yes, or I'd be reluctant to vote yes to any future stipendary positions where that would stem from this particular PD when we're already paying that person to be here 12 months.
No, I'm,
I love that answer. Thank you.
no stipends. I would do it myself before I would pay a stipend. It really, Jorge and I have talked about it, the number of stipends that are out there are vast, and I do understand, why Dr. Dionisio, went in that direction. I get it. It's very difficult when you have a limited budget to compensate people, and then ask them to do more and more and more. That's not something that we would need. We have a curriculum department. We have a director of curriculum instruction and assessment who runs PD. And I'm helping him run that. So we're good. The two of
Awesome.
us together can do it without a stipend. Unless you want to give me a stipend, that is, I'll take it. I'm just kidding.
You could try and negotiate that. The next question, it's not a question, more of a comment. This is just philosophically. I know there's only X amount we can increase the budget, but I think we should be just conscious that maybe being the lowest on that list of spending per pupil might not be a great thing, and I think we should just kind of be cognizant of that. But there's only so much we can raise taxes. But this budget, like I looked over it, for a little bit today, and I was really impressed by it. So thank you guys.
You know what? I will thank you for saying that. I do want to go on record to say that my former district was on the other end of that at $21,000 a student. But that's not my intent to get to that point. But I want to point out that even as good as this budget is, our class sizes are really too high in the elementary school. We have no remediation at all in the elementary school. We have 2 coaches for literacy that are paid for through Title I funds, so not in our budget. We have a math coach that's paid for with ESSER funds that runs out next year. We don't have gifted and talented, even a part-time. We don't have school-based learning at our high school, and we don't have any basic skills instruction. At the elementary world, we don't even have special education services other than supplemental support pull out twice a week at 30 minutes. So there's a lot that the reason our per pupil cost is so low is because we have not spent money in a long time. And I'm not advocating that we just all of a sudden throw money into our budget because we can't, right? We're capped, but we do need to look in the coming years of where we're spending and we don't have to be, and where we can allocate that money to better service our students.
I have a question. You just kind of spoke to a little bit of the things that I was thinking about, but I just want to tell you that I'm so happy to hear this idea of the new teacher evaluation as feedback, and the idea of taking that money and putting into more of pedagogy and the idea and the mindsets behind good instruction. Because I think when you have that lens of good instruction, it flushes through every content area, and then we're not spending as much in each content area through PD because we kind of have these best practice skills. So I just want to
We have really, one of the things I've seen clearly in my time here, and I can't believe it's 8 months already, but we have a wonderful staff. We have a very talented faculty, and knowing that they will embrace and run with whatever we provide them. And I happen to know that this is quality professional development. So I'm really excited about the opportunity. I'm going to continue to ask for more money, but we'll find it. We'll figure it out. Thank you.
Your questions? Thank you so much. Oh,
I'm sorry, just to
No.
follow up on your comment about the class sizes, especially at the elementary school level. What size are we growing to at this point? I remember when 16 seemed large.
Yeah, so
and-
right now for next year, adding 2 new kindergarten teachers, one at Forest and potentially one at Lanning as the numbers creep up, will be at 19 and 18 with the extra teacher. So we would have been well above 25 in those schools. Where it's average class size for elementary, for kindergarten is somewhere around 18. It is good for kindergarten. For grade 1, we have two of our four sections. I'm sorry, two of our 7 sections that are already at 25. And grade 1 is a really important year for reading. And if we go back and look, there are obviously a lot of class size research that indicate that class size doesn't matter. They were done in the 80s when teaching was very different. When you have a reading and writing program like we have, which relies on teacher conferring with kids, sitting with small groups or individuals, and you have 25 first graders learning how to read, class size does matter at that point. So I'm concerned with class sizes of 24 and 25. Starting, that means that we can have no new entrants, or that's going to push that. In grade 2, all of our class sizes are above 22 average. Upwards of there's 2 at 24 and 1 at 23, 2 at 23, I'm sorry. And then in grade 3, a little better, 1 at 24, the rest are around 19, 20. And then grade 4, they're in the 22 to 25. So big. But I do, and I'll talk a little bit about it in my superintendent report. I can just say it here and kind of circumvent mentioning there. There's a way, we're looking at scheduling HBW differently. And I'm not talking about getting rid of the house model. We're talking about looking at grades 5 and 6 in a very different way. And this is recommended by the Department of Education. We currently schedule our 5th graders and our 6th graders like they are middle school kids. We don't have to do that in that building. We can actually give them a more of a, where they're changing classes, but they're getting, the timing of it is more like an elementary school. Because right now we get 90 minutes of language arts in our elementary program and 45 in grade 5, which is, yes. So, and we get more math as well in the elementary world. So if we do that, we are going to come up with an opportunity to have a few extra teachers that we can move into so it's a cost neutral because they're already in the budget. I'm not, I haven't met with the middle school principals yet, and Mrs. Ackerman and Mrs. Peter, who, was kind of working with Mrs. Ackerman on looking at how to structure that. So it could be a win-win where we get more instructional time, better quality instructional time, because you have more time with one teacher providing that instruction, and even potentially be able to lower class sizes K4.
Case, and then we had a surplus of teachers, would we then be able to look at possibly different role opportunities for those teachers, like literacy coaches or things of that nature?
We could, there's any number of things that we could look at with regard. I have to actually sit down and see the numbers before we make any commitments, and that won't come until after we meet with the core group of Mr. Lancaster, Mr. Galbachek, Mrs. Ackerman, and the curriculum department. And we look and see, what's the yield going to be, and really the certifications of those staff. Like, we know there are definitely staff at the middle school, all middle schools, because it includes a 5th and a 6th grade that are elementary certified. And we have some that are elementary certified and middle school certified. And then we have some that are K-12 certified. So I have to look at the certifications and see what would those decisions look like, and how that would best serve our kids.
And so as we're seeing like higher class sizes, especially at the elementary level, what are you guys looking at in terms of implementing that at middle and eventually high school level in the future?
We have some time at the high school. That's why we're working on getting that information from the demographic study. That'll give us a lot more information. The high school has another one of my, I should just go into my report. So I'll go into my report because we have a space issue at the high school. So we're just trying to find space for the new LLD class. And we think we can trade off some space, some file space. Actually, there are 2 decent sized rooms at the high school that are currently closets for a lot of files that we don't need to keep. So we just need to have somebody, I'm not sure who that somebody is going to be yet, but we're going to find the right people to go through and say, okay, these are special education files that we don't need to keep for 100 years. We need to keep this much of a file that's this big, and the rest of it can be shredded. Same thing with financial files, same thing with other personnel files. There are certain things that you have to keep in public education for 100 years, 7 years, but right now, those rooms are just file rooms and we need them for classrooms. I think there's 2, right? Yeah, there's 2. So just cleaning out and again, it is a function of being administrative assistant lean, right? So we don't have that staff to keep up with that. It's very difficult, but we can make room there. And then the high school is going to be challenged, Reese, when this bulk of kids move to the high school, because we're at 98% capacity at our high school. Yeah. So I just need to ask the board if they're okay with the DEI recommendations and whether or not we can move forward with those. Yeah, okay.
Yes. So will they get published then on the website?
Yeah, I'll put them on the web. If everyone's okay with
Did
them.
we
I'll
get
put-
rid of the one about, we had the discussion about the testosterone producing sports where what we had to get special training for? Was that on there?
No.
All right, very good.
Okay. So that's one thing. So tomorrow is strategic planning, dare to dream, vision and expectations for the future. If anyone wants to attend, you can still RSVP. Anyone out there watching. We would love to have more community members on our team. And if you're interested in, because you feel like you missed meeting 1, all of the information from meeting 1 can be found on our strategic plan website on the district homepage. We are on a roll to approve 17 policies and regulations this evening. So that's part of the board's goal to update our policy manual. We talked about class size and some of our deficits. We are approving tonight the SSDS report period 1. So the student safety data system reporting period 1. I'm just going to quickly review a little bit of it. It's linked in the agenda. For reporting period 1, which is July 1, 2022 to December 31st, 2022, we had 18 incidents at the high school, total incidents, and that was a change from last year, which we had 15 during that same time period. We had 4 alleged HIB this year and last year, which means that they were investigated as HIB, but were not founded to be in violation of the HIB policy or law. 3 confirmed HIBs during this period, which is consistent with last year. One statistic that is on this year's report that was not required last year was HIB preliminary determination. In other words, if everything that has been reported is 100% true and it doesn't meet the scope and definition of HIB, there's no reason to investigate it as such. It's a drain on the system and administrative time to do that. If they can investigate it as a code of conduct violation and deal with it in that way. Code of conduct is a big umbrella that includes HIB and non-HIB. So it should be preliminary determination should be conducted, and they help us teach parents, students, and staff what HIB is and what HIB isn't. Substance abuse, we are down at the high school from 8 incidents last year to 2. We have something called other incident leading to removal that we report on. And these tend to be, students talking back to a teacher using foul language. They get suspended for a day. We had 4 this year. We had 1 last year, although last year we had 2 violence and 2 vandalism. And in looking back, I wasn't here during that time period, but I did go back and look at the reports, and they had to do with pulling of a fire alarm, which is considered vandalism under the state guidelines, and then trespass, which is also considered vandalism, and the violence was fighting. At HBW, we had 14 incidents this year. Last year, we had 7. 3 HIB alleged this year. Last year, it was 10. No HIB confirmed at HBW during this reporting period for this year, while there were 3 last year. And 2 violence or physical fights, physical altercation, and we had 1 social media threat this year. There are 2 violent fights last year. Violence, I mean, it's considered violence under the state code. Brookdale, Brookdale and Forest and Lanning were all consistent with a lack of really any incidents. We had 1 HIB alleged at Lanning that was not founded. And we are also required to report on any time a student with special needs or student with disabilities is restrained and or secluded. We had 2 restraints this year, 1 at Lanning and 1 at FNB. And that was not a category that was reported on last year, so I can't say what the comparison was.
Can I just ask a quick question
Sure.
about the HBW? It seems like there's 14 incidents, but only 3 ended up being alleged. What were what type of the other incidents
Well,
were there? Because that seems to be like we've doubled it, but then we've had less. Trying to
yes.
figure out the.
So 6 of them were just code of conduct violations, teasing, name calling, things like that. We did have 2 fights there this year. Other incident leading to removal, I believe, was a student that used the F word with a staff member, and then the threat on social media. So that was basically it's middle school acting like middle school kids. Yeah, not that kids will be kids. I'm not saying that. We should be reducing this, and hopefully, what we'll see as we start doing more training with kids and teachers, that we'll see a reduction. And we're also looking to have our principals trained in. I'm sorry, we'll run out of my head. Social justice, restorative justice. Thank you, and looking at discipline in a different way.
But we're gonna, at least in the short term, like, we're gonna see an increase of HIPs just because it's becoming just a lot easier for parents to report HIBs with the standardized forms and putting it like prominently in the front page of the website. So I think this board, we're gonna see more investigations just because of that.
This is, I think we're seeing this across the.
Oh, we're seeing it.
state, so
Yeah,
it's
we're
not
seeing it
just a-
across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of my colleagues in Essex County sent out just kind of like a straw poll, like how many of you are seeing a rapid rise in HIB since the pandemic? And yes, everybody. Yeah. We're kind of down. We're like flat or down in HIB confirmed, not our investigations. And so we celebrated a couple things last week, the first semi-formal dance at the high school in 20 years. It was fun. Yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of kids had a lot of fun. A lot of dancing. I was shocked at the music. This is my music that we were playing. Yeah, I was shocked. It was great. It was good music. And I was also very happy to see that our FN Brown students that were awarded by Table to Table for the amount of lunches that they raised money to support were also on News 12. If you missed that, that was adorable. I do have a video of it. I could not get it uploaded to Facebook, but it was, and apparently the anchor, and I don't know his name because I don't watch News 12 generally. He lives in town. Okay, yeah, that was interesting. Nice. We are looking at the website. We've talked about the website several times. Mr. Balaj and I spoke about really going to the principals and creating a site map of this is what we absolutely need to see, and this is where we're going to put it, so that everybody knows where to go for things. Because right now, I'll, and this is a question I have to ask the board. Right now, you can find a board agenda in 3 different places. Like, do we need to have board agendas in 3 different places? Yeah. Yeah, so it's under board agendas. It's in the folder, and then it's on the bottom under news. When LTN puts that up, he's got to put it in 3 different places. So when I update it, I have to, like, I updated a policy today, I had to update it in 3 places.
Oh, wow.
So if we can just keep them under Board of Education, and people can, they'll find them if they want to see the agenda. And it also goes out in Parent Square. Okay, so we are looking at a site map to try to figure out what is duplicated on our website, what we don't need on our website, and what we do need on our website to be a functional spot for parents and staff to go to find information. So we're working on that as well. And I am looking at what days to give back our 4 snow days, or summit weather days. Looks like June 6th will definitely be one of them. That's election day. That way we don't have to have our schools open with people in buildings. I can't do the May election date because that's AP tests. So I can't do both, but
How about tomorrow?
tomorrow.
Just saying.
So we'll more to come with the snow falling as we speak. I probably should hold off another week before I even make those decisions. That's my report for tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Question. Just going back to the DEI action plan. I guess at the last meeting when we talked about the inclusive teaching practices for students with hidden or non-visible disabilities, and then we kind of very quickly touched on also kind of considering those students who may be gifted or on the other side. It was that language, because I have the old copy here and I just didn't see, was that language added in there, or is that going to be added in? Do you know what I'm referring to? So it's on the first page of the original plan, underneath the activities to address recommendation, those initial one, the bottom one, and it's those inclusive teaching practices.
Yes, and that would be also, that's the language has not changed, but I have not figured out that.
Okay, I just think that was kind of that spectrum of students, for students with hidden or non-visible, but then also students who are gifted and kind of in that way.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? Thank you. I would like to also thank Mr. Cruz and Mrs. Di Giuseppe for all their time and work on the budget. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. And next up will be Reese Shahado on her student report.
So first off, Student Council had the semi-formal dance on March 8th. This is the first one in a hot minute. Is my mic okay right now? There we go. So I just want to say thank you to like all the teachers who helped out, the club advisors, Ms. Sepsi, Ms. Hemsley, Curtato, the arts and design teachers that helped with decorations, and all the teacher chaperones. So it was really a group effort between students, teachers, and admin. It went off really well. We had over 100 kids attend. Yeah, that was from 6 to 9 last Tuesday. On March 3rd, we had Ken Shelton meeting with students again and discuss school climate. Students worked in small groups to identify problems based on a couple of prompts he gave and to come up with solutions. So some of the things that were addressed were students like being able to take time out of class and strategies that they might use to like cope with dealing with like difficult emotions like anger or something like that during the school day and during instruction, and coping with that productively. And also this came up a couple of times in strategic planning, students having heavy schedules and how to cope with time management, stress, that sort of thing. On This week, juniors are taking the graduation proficiency assessments at the high school, 2 days of mathematics, 3 days of English. So that's the GPA testing going on right now. And Thursday, March 16th, spring sports are starting up. So baseball, softball, and boys tennis have already begun as of the 13th, but the rest of them, lacrosse, golf, and then the rest of the softball and baseball teams will start up soon as well. And the music program has a concert on Thursday, March 16th, a day of percussion and an evening performance on Saturday, the 18th, and their trip to Disney World next week. So they're quite busy right now. And that's the student report for this meeting.
Thank you so much. I do have a question for you, Reese. Do you have a date yet? I mean, I know there probably is a date for the prom, the junior senior prom to report out on, just so.
I can get
Okay.
information on that, but
I
I
just
don't
know
have a date
it's-
right now.
Okay, thank you.
And Reese, you don't have to play old people music at the senior prom. You could play modern stuff.
All the
Was
play,
Dancing Queen the top song?
Dancing Queen was quite popular.
Very
All the music
wanna know
was
why.
student
Yes.
requested, so
It was great.
Dancing Queen is the top song for, it's great. Thank you so much for your reports. They're always wonderful. Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to committee reports. I think we only have athletics on for this evening. Oh, okay. Oh, it's not on the schedule. Okay, so. I'll
Policy
just-
didn't meet until this morning, so.
Oh, okay. So I'll just start with athletics and then whoever else have committees can go. Athletics was a very short meeting. Like Reese mentioned, spring sports is beginning. Of course, when they start, the weather doesn't cooperate. So tennis and the pitchers and catchers started yesterday on the 13th, and all other spring sports will start on the 16th. And we spoke about the formal dance, which I'm so happy that the students got to have. And we are, as for coaching, there's a need for a boys lacrosse coach and a boys cross country coach. And we will be posting also, I believe, for the girls head basketball coach. And that is all our report is. Mr. Waka, do you have anything to add from that?
No, but I did buy a Verona tennis pair of shorts
Very
yesterday,
nice.
so I'm very happy.
So Buildings and Grounds Committee?
So Buildings and Grounds met on Monday, March 13th. Our new facilities director, please pronounce his name for me, but Bagalari. So Mr. Henry Bagalari led his first official meeting. Mr. Cruz was there, myself and Mr. Waka. The Lanning Room 101, that project has been completed. We reported out on that the last time. The things that are in progress are the playground surfacing report. The report is complete, so we're going to be following up with any repairs or requests for replacement on those playgrounds. We have in Lanning Avenue, there is a pothole on the driveway that they are addressing, as well as the railing situation that was mentioned previously up at Forest Avenue as well. There is a proposal of looking at, like, right now, we have a head custodian coordinator. So the proposal would be to make that an assistant director to facilities. And it would be a zero cost to the district. The idea would be the current stipend that that person gets would be rolled into a salary. So it would be neutral for the district, but also give somebody the level of working more holistically with the facilities director, so we can have more continuity and leadership in that area. We also discussed facilities. Another proposal that was brought up was we have custodial floaters within the district, and to take that custodial floater and fold them into in-house maintenance. So we would have additional help with maintenance and not just restricted to custodial work in the schools. And the difference there is the custodians are generally attached to a specific building and addressing building needs, where the maintenance department is district-wide. So that person who's the custodial floater would then help support the maintenance crew and support the district in a more comprehensive way. Another idea that came up that's being discussed, which I think is great, is to establish an in-house apprenticeship program. So that would also be no cost to the district, and that would help within the custodial staff to develop the people that we have in-house, have them be expanding their skills, which in turn will help with retention and any turnover on maintenance and custodial. And it would give us like higher talent and quality and very specific skills. And it would overall increase the health of buildings, having that constant maintenance. We're also looking into a ROD grant to help get relief in possibly getting rid of carpeting that's in Lanning Avenue School. Carpeting tends not to be the best in elementary schools, and that would also help out with custodial, easier to maintain and be healthier for the school building. Another proposal that was discussed at length was the possibility of creating a line item in budgets that would specifically address district-wide furniture. So it would kind of be a rotating door on new furniture, because right now it's building by building and it's need by need, and we're waiting until we're in a critical emergency situation that we might need new desks or some other type of furniture. So the idea is to create, for example, maybe a 3% line built into the budget every year. And then we would be able to allow furniture replacement in all the school buildings. So we would be able to shift around easier, get rid of old things, replace it, but always have a constant budget for it, as opposed to trying to find money for it. And it would help rotate our good furniture to other schools while bringing in brand new furniture where it's needed. What else do we have? As brought up at previous meeting, was a conversation and a proposal by the town council for the police department headquarters. So at this time, the Board of Ed officially said this is not a good time. We are going to say no to that request. There are roof repairs going on within the district at Lanning and HBW. We're waiting for one or two more estimates to come in before anything is done with that. And we're also revisiting solar panels. So we're having an energy audit done within the district. So we're going to see where that goes, and if putting solar panels might be a way to go in the future. And let me do a quick look over. I think that is it. Chris, did I miss anything? It was a big meeting.
I think you hit on every single thing. There was the retaining wall and forest. I think we talked about it at some point on the few, but
Oh, yeah, I have it on here.
he was going to talk to someone from the DPW to see about that. But otherwise, I think everything else you hit on perfect.
Yep, that is it. If there's any questions on that.
No, thank you very much.
You are welcome very much.
Next up, will policy.
Or since Lisa did facilities, I'll do policy. Like Ms. Giuseppe mentioned, there are something like 17 policies that we are approving. Pretty much everyone but one is a mandated policy, which means that the state has basically given us the language. So there's really not a whole lot of discussion on those. They are available. You know, a lot of them are policies that we probably should have updated at some point in the last few years. It just, for whatever reason, weren't updated. So we're trying to go back through the catalog and move ourselves forward so that we have a nice updated catalog of policies, hopefully by the end of the year. The one that's not mandated is actually a regulation. It's regulation 7250, which is school and facility names. This goes along with the policy that we had passed a couple meetings ago about school and facility names. The regulation is really the implementing language for the overall policy. In this policy, what we are proposing is that if someone or a group of people wish to request something be named for a specific person or group of people, I guess it could be a group, that there must be a written rationale, a company signed petition with at least 100 signatures, including home addresses, supporting the name changes. All the people who sign, all the signatories must be currently registered voters in the Verona Township. And then we have most 10% of the signatures can come from the same household. I don't think there's really many households that have 10 registered voters, but you know, just in case. And then a notarized affidavit that the signature and addresses are valid must accompany the petition. I think the idea behind this is that we want to not put up so many impediments that people can't get together and say, you know, we really want whatever, this library to be named after the librarian who's been here for 50 years and is retiring or whatnot. But we do want to make it so that it can't just be like that one, that it can't just be like a small group of people saying that they want to do something nice for someone that they know. So, and then once that's done, it's not automatic. There's a committee that's going to be formed to investigate and to vet the person. There's going to be a 30 business day period where we're going to solicit comments from the public, pro and con. And then eventually the board would have the final decision making in that process. If anyone, and I'm sorry, also any associated costs. So if we're going to be renaming a building, we're going to need lots of signs. So that would have to be borne by the people or the group that is requesting that the name be changed.
A question, since the math is kind of hokey on the 10 people from a household,
Maybe we
shall
should
I
do,
change that?
I think maybe
3%?
5%. I think because 5. I think 5. That's what I think. I mean, I know of at least one house on my block that has 5 adults in it. So, so I think 5 is.
Yeah, I was reading that today, and I could tell you guys both put a lot of work into this. Walk me through the rationale of a registered voter. Why was that important to you?
We wanted people who continue to have a vested interest in Verona and who live here currently. You know, I did not grow up in Verona, but if someone like my best friend from high school called me and said, hey, we want to name it, the gym after my volleyball coach, I'd probably sign that petition, even though I don't ever go back to my hometown. We want people who are going to be here and who are still invested in the community. And also in terms of checking the names, it's much easier to check a name against a registered voting list just administratively than trying to Google and find out if these people are real people or not.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
The only other thing I was going to add to the report is how far along we are. So the superintendent has been muscling through this fearlessly and is completed with the 1000s, 2000s, 3000s, and has begun the 4000s. So we are, really making headway to muscle through. So hopefully we're going to keep moving that very quickly. And then part of the other conversation, which no action is being taken on, but just to, we were talking about the possibility of remote instruction for remote instruction if somebody is on home instruction, like if that's feasible, if other districts do that, if that's something that, we would want to consider having an option to. And again, that's no action is taken on that at all.
To the naming thing, I just am kind of thinking about this. So I understand the reason for the current registered voters living in town. But I'm wondering if perhaps there could be a percentage of that. And I only say that because I know myself, looking back into my own, like I grew up in Secaucus, my own high school years there are coaches and teachers that if it came that a building was named after them, they've touched me in such ways that I would want to be able to speak on their
Support that.
behalf to, because I know as a student what they've done for me. And I would imagine that there are a lot of educators and coaches in Verona, people who may have moved out of town, but still have that connection or have still been touched by that teacher or coach. So I'm just wondering if maybe we could consider having a percentage where they have to still be registered voters, but still allowing. It's just, I'm just thinking
yeah.
about,
So we actually did have a conversation around that as well. And that's where the 30 days and 30 business days. So it actually gives people 4 weeks. So if you don't live in town anymore and you wouldn't be able to sign the petition, but you absolutely can address the board via email, a phone call, public meeting, and give your input. And again, like once that committee is formed, all input is taken into consideration. So the voters, to Denise's point, it's easy to validate
for that initial petition.
for that
but then
initial
anyone would
petition.
have an
And then we
opportunity.
have a
It's just
30-day
right.
period. And that was part of, we put in there too, with the request of not only having it on our website, but also publishing it in the same places we publish our public meeting. And maybe seeing if we could partner with the township and let them put it on their website or the library. Like it has to be, the schools are the heart of the community. So it has to be a large community, has to have the opportunity, whether they take the opportunity or not to comment or oppose or advocate for is incumbent upon individuals, but to get that voice out as much as possible because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
If you could just refresh my memory, what was the issue with the home instruction that you were considering?
There wasn't an issue with it. I was
Or
just,
what was the idea? What was
the idea was if somebody needed home instruction, say they're in a cast, they had a terrible skiing accident and your ankle to hip and you can't walk, but you're not sick per se, having remote access to a classroom might be more beneficial because you have the teacher, you have interactions and discussions that you would be part of, as opposed to just a one-on-one, however many hours a week home instruction.
Well, I guess
is.
why would we need an official policy for that? Like,
I don't know if we do. This was just part of the discussion.
okay,
I think
very
we
good.
do. I think we stopped, most school districts stopped offering remote instruction because it was cumbersome for the teachers. Teachers were stuck like in one area by their camera and we didn't want to facilitate that. And I don't know about here, but there was some people who were going on vacation and wanting remote instruction for their kids and we
Yeah.
wanted to discourage that. But if you, that's an isolated,
But as far as like bedside instruction, like say little Johnny breaks his leg and we have to, he might meet the teacher on Zoom that way after school. That's still something we currently
Yeah.
do without a policy.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
good. Okay.
Lisa was talking about is just having simulcasting the whole
Yeah, so
class.
you would be able- so as potentially be able to partake in the whole classroom conversation.
Expectations, again, going back to the teachers, because would there be expectations as to when that would happen? Because there could be pushback. Like there might need to be a clear,
Yeah, I would say it's limited to kids that are well enough to attend school but can't come. Like we had a student that got hit by a car, right? Couldn't use crutches because he had a broken shoulder, couldn't. So that would have been something that may have been an option for that child. But it's not gonna be a common thing, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna be out for a sickness, you're out for 3 days, you come back, you do the work, right? So it's not It's not like we're still providing remote instruction for kids that have flu or COVID or,
District initiated, it would come through the district, not a
Yes.
parent being able
Yeah.
to.
Because
just-
what I'm just considering is the school avoidant child. And if we put something on a policy, now we're almost bound to it either way. And I could see eventually someone looking at the policy book and seeing, well, I want my child to have this because he or she has school avoidance issues. But that's just my 2 cents.
And that's why it was just, an idea and a discussion to exactly get all this feedback.
Thank you. And thank you for all your hard work with the policies, because I know and this was very helpful as well. Mrs. Di Giuseppe, your memo with all what was being changed, very, very, very helpful. I like paper, as you could tell.
so do I, as you can tell. Wait, me too. I have to have my
Sorry.
binder. But sometimes when you're looking at the policies and regulations that have track changes, it's hard to even read them because you should show what's being changed, and that's one way to do it. But that helped me.
Thank you. Yeah. it helped me
Summary
as
of
well,
what and
definitely.
why.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay.
You guys are doing a good job with the policy, both of you. I'm really
Yes,
impressed with
thank you
that.
very much. It's a lot of work. On to public comments on agenda action items. If there's anyone from the public that would like to come up, please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes at the podium. Seeing none. We are now on to our discussion items. Does anyone have anything that they would like to discuss?
It's more of a shout out. I saw a social media post today for our Verona High School DECA team. They were recognized for their fundraising efforts that benefited Covenant House. So they did get a plaque when they were down there. It was a statewide community service project. So kudos to our DECA
And
advisors
they
and
were
students.
invited to Orlando.
They were.
They
We're
were.
going
They
next
choose-
level.
Yep. We had 5 students that made it to or going.
Awesome. Congratulations, DECA.
I just wanted to report out that I attended my new board member training down in Princeton or Plainsboro, or whatever it was. It was very intense. If anyone is thinking of running ever, it is very intense, this training. I think I got very little sleep that night, but it was definitely well worth it. And I actually ended up in a group with someone from Cranford, someone from Milburn, someone from Caldwell. So it happened to be a lot of board members that are local, which is nice to be able to connect with them. But so that's it.
Okay, now I think I need a motion to approve the minutes from the February 28th, 2023 meeting. Motion by Mrs. Freshy, second by Mrs. Ferrara. Any discussion? Mr. Cruz, can you please call a roll?
Yes. Mr. Walker,
Abstain.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
I'll abstain as well.
and Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve personnel resolutions. The resolutions 1.1.5. Yep. Okay, so moved. Seconded,
I'll second it.
seconded. First by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by Mrs. Frizella. Mr. Cruz, any discussion? Mr. Cruz, can you please call a roll?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve education resolutions 1 through 2.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by, second. Mrs. Farrar. Any discussion?
1 and 2.
I just wanted to mention about the DNA detectives. My daughter did that. She loved it. So that is a great little program that they're running in the 8th grade science class.
Yeah, and I love the grant for the community garden, the students. That's great.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, can you please call roll?
Sure. Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
thank you. On to special education. I need a motion to approve resolutions 1 through 5.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by
I'll second it.
Mrs. Frizella. Any discussion?
I just have a question about the Care Plus contract. What, the $380,000, how does that compare to the current ESS contract? I know it's more students. I know they can help more students. but-
Yeah, so we currently take 30 students, I believe, with ESS. And we have 2 practitioners, 2 clinicians at the high school, 1 at the middle school. So 20 students here and 10 at HBW. We will be able to have, we'll have 3 clinicians. Yes, that'll be able to work with 75 students. Care Plus, and it's about, Mr. Cruz, it's about $80,000 less?
Yes. it was
It's
about 80.
About $80,000 less. Now, because this was a referendum question,
Mhm.
that money has to stay within the mental health field.
Mhm.
So we'll transfer it for use with other mental health initiatives.
So we'll help more students in district, but it'll cost us 80,000
Less,
less.
yes.
And then we'll have that additional,
then we have
that
that additional money to
80,000
use
to
on
use
this.
within mental health. That's a win.
Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you. Mr. Cruz, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Walker,
I'm very happy to vote yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco.
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
thank you. On to, I need a motion to approve athletics and co-curricular
Make a motion.
resolutions 1.1.2.
Motion.
Motion,
Second.
motion by Mrs. Ferrara, second by Mrs. Brazella. Any discussion?
I'm going to recuse myself from 1.1.
Mr. Cruz, can you please call a roll?
Sure. Mr. Walker,
Yeah.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
I will abstain.
and
Oh, I could vote on 1.2. I'm going to abstain from 1.1 since
okay,
that is my son.
and Mrs. Freshy, you're abstaining from
I'm
1
good.
point.
Yep, I'm going to
One.
recuse from 1.1 and 1.2. Yes.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you please call a roll? Oh,
He did.
Yes.
That was the roll.
Yes.
We were doing so good. and then-
She's doing great.
all righty. On
Doing
to
great.
finance. I need a motion to approve, wait a minute, resolutions 1 through 5. Thank you. Motion to approve 1 through 5 for motion by Mrs. Rosella, seconded by
Second.
Mrs. Ferrara. Any discussion?
Nope.
Mr. Cruz, can you please call roll?
Sure. Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
I need a motion to approve resolution for governors and governance and policy, I'm sorry, resolutions 1 through 3.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by
I'll second it.
Mrs. Rosella. Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Cruz, if you can please call the roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to our public comment section of the agenda. If there's any public that would like to come to the podium, please state your name and address. Seeing that there is none. Our next.
March 28th.
March 28th, right? Our next scheduled meeting will be held on March 28th, 2023, beginning with confidential session at 6 PM and public session at 7 PM in the Verona High School Learning Commons. We are going to adjourn the meeting. It is 8:38. I need a motion to adjourn.
So move to adjourn the meeting.
Mrs. Freshy, seconded by
Got it.
Mrs. Rosella.